to us, ladies and gentlemen. The Irish border, because of the UK will, is going to become the border of the EU and our own internal market. It's going to be one of our new external border. And what is at stake, of course, is the protection of all consumers and companies in the Union. More specifically still, the UK decision to leave the EU, the single market, has a practical, and the customs union has a clear result. All goods, all animal or plant produce, all live animals going into Northern Ireland from the UK are not only entering Northern Ireland, but they're also entering into the single market of your countries, and the safety, the nature of those products linked to animal quality. And I'm saying this as a former Minister of Agriculture in my country. That requires checks. And those checks are implemented on all of our external borders, all around the EU. Health checks, fiscal checks, veterinary checks, and regulatory checks. And we owe that protection to the 500 million consumers and with the UK now, and the 22 million companies. We owe that protection to all of those who are in the internal market. For those people now calling to get rid of the backstop, there are members of the UK Parliament, and I heard some of them saying this morning, and they negotiated with us. And they know perfectly well that this backstop is the solution we came up with for what is the very heart, the core of us as Europeans, of our obligations and our principles, as President Juncker was saying. In other words, the protection of the internal market in all of its dimensions, all of the rights, social rights, economic rights, consumer rights, environmental rights, and protection for companies and consumers. So when I hear to some people who were even part and parcel of the negotiations, when I hear them saying what they're saying, it's tough. I find it hard to accept this blame game that they're trying to play against us. As President Juncker has said, we will do nothing. It's as simple as that. Nothing which would undermine the internal market. Nothing which would compromise the future of the European Union because of these negotiations. And as the President said, we are nonetheless open to alternative arrangements which were mentioned yesterday in the House of Commons. The Irish Protocol and the political declaration mentioned that, and the letter from President Juncker made that a priority for future negotiations. We're ready to work on that as soon as the withdrawal agreement is signed. But right here and now, quite honestly, no one, neither on one side nor on the other, can say very clearly and precisely what form these alternative arrangements will take, so that they can be operational and so that they can objectively meet the aims of the backstop. So once again, calmly but clearly, I will say right here and now, with this withdrawal agreement as proposed for ratification, we need this backstop as it is. Ladies and gentlemen, rejecting the backstop as it stands today boils down basically to rejecting the solution which was found with the British. But the problem remains, as I've already described it for you. And on that point, going beyond the alternative arrangements I mentioned, the European Council and the European Parliament on several occasions have already clearly rejected the idea of having a limit in time or leaving unilaterally the backstop, because that would undermine the very idea of the backstop. It's an assurance. We don't want to use it. Well, it's your own insurance for your house or your apartment or whatever. We don't want to use it, but it will be there if we need that insurance. Finally, the withdrawal agreement we're talking about, that you're very familiar with, goes well beyond the question of Ireland. This agreement ensures the rights of more than 4.5 million citizens. President Tajani, you talked about the priority of the Parliament. It's ours as well. And whatever happens, that priority to secure the rights of citizens, our compatriots, 3.5 of them living in the UK from our different countries, of course, and the rights of 1.5 million UK citizens in our countries. Securing those rights is our priority. We have to protect the beneficiaries, all of them, of the European budget in the 28 countries. The commitments we entered into with 28 have to be respected by 28. A 21-month transition period, in the course of which administrations and companies on both sides will be able to prepare themselves for this future relationship. And that will give us a time, not long, it will be very demanding, but that will give us a time to negotiate the future relationship in a new stage of the negotiations. So this agreement is the necessary first step to build confidence between the United Kingdom, which will remain an ally, a partner, a friendly country, and the European Union. A real, solid, ambitious partnership. And I would just like to add that in respect of this future relationship, the Europeans are ready and will continue to be ready over coming days to be more ambitious and to rework the nature and intensity of our future relations, economic relations in particular. And you know, ladies and gentlemen, that there are several models for economic cooperation with third countries. Each of these models obviously has its own balance of rights and obligations, but there are many different models. If the UK demand were to evolve beyond a simple free trade agreement, on which we agreed in the political declaration, and they move towards one or the other of these models, we will be ready to discuss that immediately and express our own ambitions in the face of the UK ambitions. We've said that already, as you have in your resolutions, as has the European Council. I mentioned lucidity beforehand and realism, as you did, Madam Secretary of State. It's less than 60 days now to when the UK is going to leave, but we don't have a positive majority now in the House of Commons on an clearly identified solution accepted by the UK. And as President Juncker said, it is therefore urgent that we should be prepared for all scenarios, and we should bring in all contingency measures which are more essential than ever. And that's what the Secretary General has been called upon to do by President Juncker, who's working with you and all of your teams. Thank you very much for your attention and for your confidence.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Barnier. Vous pouvez...
Thank you very much, Mr. Barnier. You can count on the support of the European Parliament. The first speaker is Mr. Elmar Brok on behalf of the EPP Group.
Herr Präsident.
Mr. President, President in Office, Commission President Michel Barnier, dear colleagues, I would like to begin by thanking Jean-Claude Juncker and Michel Barnier for the good cooperation, the genuine transparency that they've shown, the information they have given us, and the ability to listen in this process. It's a good example of cooperation. On top of this, our awareness that we continue to support this negotiating strategy. We saw the vote in the House of Commons yesterday. All the positive, constructive proposals were rejected. The only thing people agree on is this proposal that May has made for the third or fourth time now, which is to go back to Brussels and renegotiate the backstop. There's nothing new that has been agreed. It's vital, really, that the head of the government and the leader of the opposition have not been speaking to one another in a period of 3 years. If you are leaving, you need to know what it is that you want before you bother other people with this. So please come with a unified position.
Constructive idea and come back to Brussels. That might be an important question. Talk to each other. We are united. You are not united within the government, within the Tory party, within the Labour Party. That's the main problem. Wir sehen hier,
what we see here is there is a negative majority consisting of various positions which range from the hard Brexiters to the Remainers. And you can negotiate as much as you want. The ones who want a hard Brexit won't agree, and the people who hope that at the end of the day that they'll stay. At the end of the day, it won't work because they'll reject everything. There isn't another referendum. So in this situation, we can't achieve anything. For this reason, it won't be possible to reopen the discussion on the backstop with Mrs. May. You have to understand that your country is a member of the European Union. And it was thanks to a large degree to being in the EU that the Good Friday Agreement could be achieved.
Wir werden dies verteidigen.
And we will defend this agreement. We will defend the peace programme. We don't want a hard border. And you yourselves have said you don't want a hard border. You said, you know, that a backstop was necessary too. We will defend the Good Friday Agreement and resist having a hard border. The backstop that we have now with the customs union was invented by the British. It was a British proposal. The European Union had made other proposals to achieve this. So now the British want to renegotiate something that they proposed themselves in the first place. I mean, I think this is, quite crazy. So you in London have to sit down together and talk to each other and decide what it is that you want first. And when we have the withdrawal agreement, you have a transition period in which all sorts of things can be arranged, all sorts of things can be sorted out. A trade zone or a Swiss arrangement, a Norway arrangement, whatever you want. And then you wouldn't need the backstop. It's clear that the backstop won't be necessary if we sort out the arrangements during the transition period. So please get things sorted out, get these things clear. It's natural, of course, that we should have to carry on with our preparedness proposals. It's, of course, natural that we are still open to discussions. You don't want a hard Brexit. We don't want a hard Brexit. I don't want a Brexit at all, just to be absolutely clear. But it's for the British to decide. We have to accept that. And we want to be there in order to limit the damage as much as we can possibly do for both sides. One thing that I think the British population should know is that the damage will be much greater to the UK. The European market is 14 times bigger than the British, and all of these companies that want to produce for the EU market are going to leave the UK. It's going to be a bitter hour for the UK, a bitter hour for all of us. So please get together, talk sensibly to one another. It means, first of all, that the British have to arrive at a sensible and constructive position first.
Excellent German from the British bench there, thank you. We move now to our next speaker on my list here, Mr. Gualtieri for the Alliance of Socialists and Democrats.
Thank you, President, Mr. President of the Commission, dear Michel. It is difficult to deny that we are facing a difficult and grave situation and that the risk of no deal has increased. The House of Commons has voted it rejects a no-deal Brexit, which is good, but at the same time it has asked to replace the Northern Ireland backstop with alternative arrangements, which is clearly not a workable option. We have seen with surprise the same Prime Minister who just a few days ago said that the best backstop was an essential part of the best deal possible, now calling for its replacement. This might have temporarily reunited a political party, but has not provided any positive solution to the Brexit deadlock. We have therefore to explain again why this Parliament and the European Council, in their mandate to the EU negotiator, have made clear that an operational and legally binding backstop is an essential pillar of a withdrawal agreement, and that we will not give consent to any deal without it. Preventing a hard border in Ireland and protecting the peace process is not a partisan position. And the single market integrity is a not negotiable principle for the European Union. The backstop is a guarantee, an option of last resort. It is necessary to ensure that if an agreement on the future EU-UK relationship is not concluded by the end of the transition period, the minimum essential safeguards will be in place to keep the border open while safeguarding the integrity of a single market. It is worth to recall that the backstop has been modified at the request of the UK government, and it was not an easy concession from the EU side. We did it to allow Northern Ireland to remain part of the same customs territory as the rest of the UK, avoiding tariffs, quotas of checks on rule of origin within it. And we did it notwithstanding the fact that our original proposal of backstops was simple, fair, and did not impose any material border in the Irish Sea. The only positive message from yesterday's vote is that the UK Parliament rejects a no-deal Brexit. This is welcome. A no-deal would be bad for everybody, but a disaster for the UK. It is right that MPs made clear that this is not acceptable. So what's next? We have always said, and we repeat today, that we want to see as close a relationship as possible between the United Kingdom and the European Union. It was the UK red lines that has made this impossible so far. This means that, for us, the only alternative to the backstop is a closer EU-UK relationship. If you want to ensure that the backstop is never used, build a positive majority for a more ambitious relationship, a custom union, at least a closer alignment to the single market. We are now less than 2 months away from the UK leaving the EU. We urgently need to see positive proposals from the UK on how to break this deadlock. If Parliament is unable to do this, then it should be put back to the British people. If the UK needs more time, we are open to it, but we need a clear plan or proposal on how it will help resolve the issue. We cannot allow more time for bluster of false promises. We are united, strongly united, calm, firm behind our negotiator. We will continue to follow the clear mandate given both by the European Council and the European Parliament. And so it is right that on the basis that is unity, we have to be worried, but we can be also optimists. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Fox for the Conservatives and Reformists Group. And please show respect to the speakers. Mr. Coburn, that was directed towards you. Thank you. Mr. Fox, I hope he shows you respect. Thank you.
Madam President, I've heard 5 speeches this afternoon describe the efforts made to negotiate the withdrawal agreement and how good it is. But I'm sure you will all have noticed that this very withdrawal agreement was rejected 2 weeks ago in the House of Commons by an overwhelming majority. So now is not a moment for rhetoric, but for reflection. It was never going to be easy to disentangle the United Kingdom from the European Union, but there is now a clearer road ahead if we choose to take it. I know there are some here, Elmar Brok, still hoping that the UK will stay in the Union. and are taking positions based on that hope. But this is not going to happen. It would be wrong in principle to ignore the referendum result. And in practice, it is clear there is no majority in the House of Commons in favour of such a course. The amendment designed to secure a second referendum was withdrawn, as it had so little support. The British government and the House of Commons wants to leave the EU in an orderly manner and with a deal. And to achieve that, we need to change how the protocol on Northern Ireland operates. We must do all we can to support the Good Friday Agreement. But it is a paradox that the backstop, whose purpose is to avoid a hard border, may, in just 58 days' time, be the cause of creating such a hard border in the island of Ireland. Let me repeat, the backstop in its current form will not prevent a hard border. It will create it. Let us all pause to consider this. It may be very easy to sit down to great applause today for a rigid defence of an existing position. History may not be so kind. Because as things stand, we don't have a deal. There is no deal until both sides have approved it according to their law. And it is simply not good enough to repeat ad nauseam that the deal cannot be amended. That leads to no deal. And that leads, as the Commission confirmed last week, to a hard border between the United Kingdom and Ireland. So it is my hope that even at this late hour, changes or additions can be made to bring a deal safely home. As Monsieur Barnier said, in the event of a no deal, the EU would find an alternative operational way to carry out checks and controls without putting back in place a border. That's a quote. Let us look at that now. Let us consider whether time limits and exit mechanisms offer a solution. Let us proceed with goodwill, remembering that flexibility and generosity are not signs of weakness, but of strength. For what is at stake is not just the draft agreement. At stake is the future partnership between the European Union and the United Kingdom. Let us ensure that we can construct a long-term relationship to promote our common values and our shared interests in an uncertain world. Let us find a way to move forward together. Thank you.
For the Alliance of Liberals and Democrats, Mr Verhofstadt.
Yes, after the vote yesterday, Mrs. May announced that she will come to Brussels, and for me, I have to tell you very honestly, she's always welcome. Certainly here in this European Parliament, it should be good that she comes to the European Parliament here, as we requested already more than a year ago. But the question today is naturally, for what? For what? To do what? Is it to change the red lines that the British government has used from day one? That could be a breakthrough, I think. That could change effectively the outcome of this whole process. Or is it, that's my second point, what will be her mandate? Because for the moment, I have to tell you, Mr. Fox, I have also yesterday not seen a parliament that gives a clear mandate to Theresa May. We have seen a vote against a number of things. Against the deal, against no deal, against the backstop. But until today, more than 2 years, the House of Commons has not voted one proposal in favour of something, in favour of a relationship between the EU and the UK. Never. The last 2 months, I have to tell you, have been very exhausting. Very exhausting. not only at the other side of the channel, also here. Endless debates, long list of amendments, amendments going in all directions, selected by the speaker, and then won and lost with a teeny tiny majority. I give here the list. The Grieve amendment, that was the 4th of December. That was for a Remain amendment. Huh? Won by 22 votes. The Cooper amendment, also Remain amendment, that was of the 8th of January, won with 7 votes. Then another Cooper amendment, that was yesterday, lost by 23 votes. Then the Brady amendment, that was more a Leave amendment, won by 16 votes yesterday. And then again a Remain amendment, the Spellman amendment, and to take the no deal from the table, won by 8 votes. Is that the way you can solve a problem of a magnitude? Is that the way to do that? Is that the way you do that? That is every day changing your opinion, every day changing your opinion, and in any way creating an uncertainty, an instability, instead of concluding a real new relationship between the EU and the UK. And I have to tell you, I'm looking to that and I cannot understand it, that what started as a catfight inside the Conservative Party is today an existential problem for the whole Britain. And like yesterday, voting, for example, the Spellman amendment with a majority of 8 votes, saying the no deal is off the table, and then the Prime Minister coming back 5 minutes later and saying, no, that was for joking, that we did that. A no deal is still possible. I have to tell you, we cannot go further like that. This is a lack of clarity and a lack of stability. And I hope one thing, that is at this moment is happening as we speak, a meeting between the leader of the opposition, Mr. Corbyn, and the Prime Minister, Mrs. May. I hope that they will decide, or that they will discuss content, and that is not only eating biscuits and drinking tea this afternoon. Because it could be the solution for this problem if they start to working together on a cross-party approach so that we know what the position of the UK is in the future. Because we don't know it. Putting in fact, Mr. Fox, putting in fact country before party, telling us how they see that future relationship between the EU and the UK, and not using or abusing Brexit as it happened now to get rid of each other, because that is what's happening today. And if that is the spirit that emerged in Downing Street this afternoon, then the Prime Minister May can come and has to come to Brussels to tell us what this broad, stable majority cross-party wants as future relationship. And I think also there is the solution for the backstop. Because if there is a close relationship, deeper as Michel Barnier has indicated, then the backstop will still exist. But it shall not be necessary to use it. It shall be a theoretical insurance that in fact is not necessary to apply. Again, we are ready to go in that direction. Michel Barnier has indicated, Jean-Claude Juncker has indicated. It's time that the political class in Britain is also ready to go in that direction, the fastest as possible, because you're going to pay the first price of this lack of clarity.
Our next speaker on my list is Madam Scott Cato for the Greens European Free Alliance. Madam.
Thank you very much, President. Westminster is in meltdown. The internal contradictions of Brexit were laid bare last night. Brexit was never anything more than a bunch of slogans. It could never be turned into a coherent negotiating position. As we play out the endgame and the Brexit fraud is revealed, its supporters dream up fantasy deals so that failure can be blamed on Brussels. But we must hold our nerve through this Westminster chaos. A majority of UK citizens know that the best future for our country is inside the European Union. Here, we can continue to be part of the world's most successful peace project, and together we can tackle the huge cross-border issues we face, most notably climate change. We are now the majority, and as young people reaching voting age want to join us in improving our continent in mutual friendship, so our numbers grow. Now that MPs have rejected no deal, the clear choice is still between the deal negotiated between the UK and the EU and remaining in the EU. This choice must be given back to the people. The hostility of the supporters of Brexit, as we see here, to such a democratic check proves that they are running scared because they know, as I do, that the will of the British people has changed and has turned against them and their Brexit chaos.
Colleagues, if it were in my power, but it's not, the word rubbish would be banned from this chamber. I wouldn't share it with you, sir. We'll move to the next speaker on my list, Madam Simmer. Please, this is a very difficult issue for all of us, and the least we could do is respect the person that has the microphone. There are too many, and I have to say, on my right, intervening with the debate. Please listen. It is far too serious an issue for us to play out in Parliament. This is not the House of Commons, colleagues. This is the European Parliament.
Thank you, Madam President. Well, today we discussed within our group how we should respond to the votes yesterday and how we could deal with the current situation. For us as a group, it's really clear. We stand behind the withdrawal agreement as negotiated. That is the achievable solution. It is not the best thing that you might dream of for developing a future relationship between the EU and the UK. But clearly, with a lot of effort, with loads of resources thrown at it, that is what has been possible for us to negotiate over the last 2 years. So we have to think whether, if we stand behind the best that we've been able to achieve together. We can't say, oh, I want to pick this out, take that and add that. No, that would endanger the cohesion of the whole package. When I think about our colleagues in the House of Commons, the message I would like to pass on is that 2 years ago, when we in the European Parliament adopted the mandate for the negotiations, the mandate that Mr. Barnier received was an important one, and we were able to make clear in the debate how important it is to defend the rights of EU citizens in the UK and British citizens in the European Union. But at the same time, the issue of stabilising the peace process in Northern Ireland was a key red line. It was not a question of our own interests. It's a question of peace and stability across the European Union. Back in January, at the time of the first vote, and in the debate that I saw yesterday in the House of Commons, the impression that I got